Hello, I'm Hugh Hanson, and I am the costume designer for Murder on the Orient Express here at the Pittsburgh Public Theater. So I am a freelance costume designer as well as a teacher. I teach at CMU in costume production, where I teach such courses as tailoring, draping, tutu making, old world skills that I fear are potentially being lost to us. I have worked at the Pittsburgh Public Theater as a designer twice before this. Once was for A Few Good Men, and the very first show I did was called Marjorie Prime. All of those were directed by Mariah Sikonitsky. When I am first approached with a show, I have the script to read and respond to and begin to glean from it both historical context, particulars about the characters, and the tone of the script. This play in particular is one where the writing of Ken Ludwig has an elevation to it, an exaggeration, almost high style. And so we wanted to capture in the clothing that same writing style. As I begin a project, I have a huge library both at my house and at my office, and I look through and see if anything I can pull down off the shelf that will be relevant. I search the internet for new images, things to look at, things to read. Certainly with a production like Murder on the Orient Express that has had so many productions done of it, I look at those previous productions to see what has been done, the choices that have been made, how they might inform mine. I don't want them to direct mine, but with a character that's historical, such as Poirot, historical in the literary sense, there have been a lot of Poirots that go before me, so I want to make sure that my choices both respect those choices and create a unique individual for this particular show at this particular moment, at this particular time. The great thing about the 1930s is that everybody was aware of how to dress. I have pictures of my parents in the 30s, and they're poor farmers. They do not have a penny to their name. And they're leaning up against a car, hat slouched across the eyes. They look like they're movie stars. So there's a general panache in 1934 that reaches even the most common of person. It's exciting when I approach a play like this where we have people of a whole variety of social standings, and I can play with that and make everyone feel really smashing, really dressed to the nines, and the people that come from royalty I can take to the highest point I possibly can. I'm really fortunate to be paired with designers such as Bryce, who designed the set, and Charisse, the lighting designer, as well as Andre, who did the sound. They're very collaborative people. And in some instances, the costume design can function completely on its own and is not dependent on those other aspects. But as big choices are being made, such as the blue everywhere on the set, that informs how everything that I do is going to be framed. It's all going to be framed in blue. And from that moment forward, I began working with, actually I have a piece of the fabric over there that I'm placing every choice on, so I know how that's going to resonate with the blue. Charisse was playing with really vibrant colors that sort of illuminate the periphery of the stage, and it only chose to emphasize the sort of broad spectrum color palette in jewel tones that I had selected for the clothes. So, well, it's hard to compete with the Countess, right? She's the last person to board the train, and she makes, I hope, and my intention is, the splashiest of the entrances. This fabric came from New York, and a student of mine made the muff, and the garment was made by Marianne Crosstein. And those sorts of collaborations are really imperative. While I could sew this, it wouldn't come out the same. I wouldn't make the same choices that Marianne does. She guides me as she responds to what I'm giving her. She's responding to the cloth that I've chosen and the human figure within. And so that all comes together in a way that elevates what is on the page to something that's really entirely unique for the stage. We have standing here the Countess as she arrives for the train. We have Colonel Arbuthnot as we see him at the top of the play in a coat, and this is a Norfolk jacket underneath. He has on his lapel a lapel pin that was given to all the UK soldiers at the end of World War I. This is an actual pin because they were quite commonplace. Everybody received one. It's actually a clue in the play because Poirot is able to identify a little bit of the story that Mr. Arbuthnot has been lying to him about. And we have the princess, who is Russian. In this garment, I was able to use a piece of research that I found of a 1930s calf-length coat and extend it because I wanted these entrance coats to be grand and dramatic, have a bit of train to them. The fabrics come from New York. I began a process of shopping for fabrics back in December, swatching, gathering, and choosing until we made our final choices in February. So this is what the princess is wearing in the second day, when they get up the next morning after the murder. Compiling the fabrics for this particular costume was really a joyful experience for me because I was able to use something that I've had for about 30 years in my personal stock. I bought this piece of fabric at Mood back a long time ago now, and it's just kind of been traveling with me, waiting for the right moment to come out and be used. I was able to pair it with this wonderful fabric from B&J Fabrics in New York. This is a silk velvet that's been tufted into a Persian lamb effect is what they call it. And so that gives you a fur-like feeling without it being actually technically fur. The collar's very relaxed. Originally, when I went to design the princess, I was designing very complicated things, and those iterations weren't working for me. And I realized what makes royalty is really a simple choice of really expensive cloth, really simple lines, and then a few stellar pieces. I bought this clasp from a lady in England who sells vintage jewelry, and then I believe this came from Macy's. So that's what we have for you today. Feel you should come see the show. It's running now through May 1st.